Where do you see, the world in terms of conflicts and, interstate rivalry in the next 10 years?
I mean, on the Ukraine thing, this minerals deal, that's a sort of diplomacy a la Al Capone. I mean, that's basically extortion. If you want to be able to get by in this world, you're going to have to give me a lot of stuff. And that's a very crude form of diplomacy. And so, for example, all of the security treaties between the United States and the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and so on, are fundamentally, but more implicitly, based on the idea that there will be a US security guarantee if there are certain privileged economic engagements by the US. And so I think what's dramatic is that it's explicit and in your face, and at least in the case of the Ukraine one, essentially extortionist in its approach. But like with many of these developments, it's not totally new. It's just new in its scale and format.
Where do you see, the world in terms of conflicts and, interstate rivalry in the next 10 years?
And they started counting wars, in great detail in the 1980s. And the level of warfare that they've identified, which is now about 60 wars involving at least one state party, that's a higher number than we've seen since they started counting. And the number of people killed in wars and the proportion of them were civilians are generally rising. And I think the real risk is that war systems tend not to be linear. At the moment, there is a sort of more or less linear growth in warfare and its harms, but there is always the risk that it tips into catastrophic levels greater than that. And I think as the multilateral system comes under stress, the rules of the post-World War order come under stress, there is the risk that a linear growth in warfare over the next decade could tip into something catastrophic.